All right. Well, it looks like it is just about 1 o'clock Mountain Time, since I see it is 2 o'clock Central Time on my computer. So let's get started. So welcome everyone. Let's see. Let's actually start the video and welcome at the same time, so we can get it all done logically. So welcome everyone. This is Lisa adjusting her microphone. This is DES 370 advanced logo advanced logo design, and we are in our second session of our first week of our ninth mod together. And in keeping with the ninth mod, today is 090617, which would be September 6th, 2017, and today is a Wednesday. At least it is when I'm recording. Who knows what day, what day it might be when you're watching this. But yeah, so hopefully everybody is hanging in there. I did want to say, if you are watching from, if you are tuning in, I guess I should say, from somewhere in the Florida vicinity, and things are getting increasingly stressful, please let me know. Please keep me kind of posted on what's going on, kind of what you're doing, where you are, if you need to evacuate. I know that things have been a little bit dicey as far as kind of pathways for the hurricane, where is safe, where is not, what's going to happen with winds and things. So if you do happen to find yourself in those places, please let me know, and know that your safety is the most important. And so I'm completely willing to work with you as far as timing, deadlines, participation, any of those things. So hopefully nobody's affected. Hopefully we're all in high grounds and stable places. But if you do happen to find yourself in a space that's kind of geographically challenged at the moment, just let me know, and know that I'm on your side 100%, and hopefully the rest of the classes too. So so just kind of keep me posted. See if there's any other housekeeping issues I can think of. Not too much to report, other than good to see everybody again. I think I'm going to momentarily turn off the video so that we don't have to be distracted. I don't have to be distracted, I guess. But as always, good to see everybody. And let's jump in and get things started. All right. See you guys. If I can remember how to stop my video. Okay. All right. So let's jump into our agenda for the day. We're going to begin with a little bit of review. So we started off yesterday's session with lots of review, hopefully some good refreshment from things that you may have learned all the way back in DES 242, which I believe is logo and identity. It is the prereq for this class. So we did lots of review yesterday, and we're going to do just a bit of review today to just kind of make sure everything is on track. Oh, welcome. Looks like we just had a student pop in. Yay, exciting. Exciting as always. So we're going to start with some review. Then we're going to do a quick review of, well, I say quick, maybe not. We're going to do a review of the assessment, because we did kind of go over that in a fairly focused way in yesterday's session. So if you're watching this session first, totally cool, that's fine. But just be sure that you do refer to the first session of the week as well, just so you can kind of get the fuller version. So we're going to review assessment 1, and then we're going to move into typography adjustments, talk about what that is all about. And then we're actually going to move into assignment 1, and that was the agenda point I forgot to put on. As I was putting together these slides, I had this nagging feeling that I was forgetting something, and hopefully the only thing I forgot was that assignment 1 agenda point, but we shall see, I guess, as things as things unfold over the next 2 hours or so. So review, kind of probably a review of typography, and then a look at the assignment for this week, as well as the cumulative overview for where we're headed for this class. All right, so speaking of review, we're going to review our learning objectives. So first learning objective, describe 3 qualities of a wordmark logo. This is something you will encounter in discussion, so make sure that you jump in and check that out. I actually haven't looked at discussion today, but I know that as of yesterday, only one person had posted, but she did a fabulous job, so we're going for quality over quantity, and that's actually okay. And we also don't have a ton of students in class, so one post is proportionately quite large. But yeah, just make sure that you're jumping in at some point. There's lots of interesting information presented in the discussion, and it's lots to just kind of mull over. Like I think I said yesterday, this course has just recently been completely redesigned, and something that's a bit different in the redesigned courses are the discussions. In the past, discussion has been a lot of like, hey, go out and find something, and like essentially like a show and tell opportunity. Now the discussion is kind of more meant to be like here's an issue, here's a challenge, here's something that guarantee you will face when you're in the quote unquote real world of design, so something that you will face as a professional. And so kind of how can you kind of chew on and think about it, and just kind of engage with the ideas. So they can be, I think, from my perspective, I think they look a little bit intimidating, just because there tends to be a lot more content than perhaps there was in the past. But I would encourage you guys to just, think about the ideas, think about what's being presented, and, give your own kind of personal take, your own personal thoughts, your ideas, that sort of thing. So it doesn't have to be, perfectly composed and well thought out, and well, it should be well thought out, but don't let just fear of your own writing style or something keep you out of discussion. And please don't like copy and paste something off the internet. If I wanted to read about the internet, I would read the internet. But what I really care about is what you guys have and kind of your own unique experiences and kind of how your brains work. And that's something I can't read on the internet. So just, when you're approaching discussion, really think like, Lisa cares what I think. And so let me tell her what I think, and it doesn't have to be fancy or whatever. So I'm all for the casual, totally fine. All right, so describe 3 qualities of a wordmark logo. First objective. Second, identify 3 attributes that distinguish a wordmark logo that uses a custom font from a wordmark logo that uses a stock font. Again, this is in the discussion. Number 3, identify the relationship between brand keywords and logo visual characteristics. And then number 4, identify a viable strategy from research to solve a visual problem. And number 4 is specifically with the assessment for this week. And number 3 is kind of assignment and assessment-y together. So kind of the breakdown of the learning objectives. It's kind of cool though. You guys can think like, come Sunday, you can check these off the list. You will have learned them. Hopefully you will retain them as well. But yeah, it's just good to have that kind of check-in point. All right, so what is a logo? This is kind of jumping back into review. So as you are here in the session, whether you're physically present as we are recording this, or whether you're present via video, it doesn't matter. Kind of just ask yourself in your head, or even using your voice if you want to, say it out loud. What is a logo? And if you're here, if you want to type anything you want to in the chat box, that's fine as well. But yeah, if you're watching via video, in just a couple seconds, what is a logo? What did we say? What did we say yesterday? or in the first video. What's a logo? Okay, so if you are thinking that a logo is a word, a symbol, or a picture, or a mashup of the two, or a logo is the face, it should say the face of a company. Another thing I may have forgotten of the company. But anyway, yeah, and this is actually, face was added to our, added to the definition because a student yesterday, who is also present today, was able to share a good definition of what a logo is, which I thought was perfect and easy to visualize. So yeah, so a logo is a word, symbol, or a picture, or a mashup of the two, so some sort of combination mark. And a logo really is the face of a company. So a logo is kind of what tends to be most recognizable from a company. So like, for example, if I say Nike, probably nobody thinks of like a pair of socks or like, you know, some running shorts or a sweatband. Nope, we all think of the swoosh. Like that is, you know, that is the quote unquote face of Nike. When I say Apple, you know, you may think of things like iPods, computers, what have you, but you probably also think of that little Apple icon because it's the logo. It's the actual face, the face of the company. So just as we all have kind of faces that tend to be recognizable, and then we also are much more than our faces. The relationship between logos and brands is kind of the same thing. So a logo is kind of the recognizable part of the company, but just like we are much bigger than our faces, brands are much bigger than just their logo, but the logo is certainly the very, very important part because it is kind of that front-facing element. So logos, high level, word, picture, word, picture, symbol, or a mashup, and a logo really is kind of the face of the company. Okay, so moving right along. What are logo types? There are 7 distinct ones that we talked about in yesterday's session. I won't ask you all to remember and list them, mostly because I don't think I could remember and list them. So if you have a great photographic memory, you might be able to do it. But here they are, separated out for those of us who aren't quite as photographic. So we have word mark and letter mark. Next we have pictorial mark, abstract mark, and mascot. And then we have the combination mark as well as the emblem. And as we saw, there's kind of seven main types of logos. And then they can be further separated into words and letters, which is word mark, letter mark, pics and symbols, which is pictorial, abstract, and mascot. And then combination, which is literally a combination of some sort of both word and picture element. So kind of cool. And like I said yesterday, you know, your unofficial challenge for the week, should you choose to accept it, is to really look at what surrounds you in life and see, you know, first off, what kind of logos are surrounding you. And then second, see what type of logo they are. So is it a word mark? Is it a letter mark? I think I have a hunch that the majority of us are surrounded by combination marks. So the combo of text and imagery. But who really knows? You know, you gotta check it out and see. Actually, speaking of that, I think I will turn on my webcam one more time. This has got like a little show and tell moment. So let's get things. So I am actually here drinking water, but I am drinking it out of a glass. This might be backwards actually for you guys, but I also don't want to spill it on my keyboard. But it says Odell Brewing Company. I promise it is water. But it's interesting because as I was just going through, you know, those like what kinds of logos are we surrounded by? Do you guys have any guesses as to what kind this might be? Like what this could fit with? And this is their logo, so it's this whole thing. And if you're watching via video, you can guess as well. You might not be able to type it in the chat box, but yeah, any guesses? What is Odell Brewing Company? What sort of mark is that? I'm trying to see if there's anything else here that might be a logo-ish. No. Okay, see, give a couple seconds. Check out the check out the 7. What could it be? Okay, it looks like a leaf. Exactly. So if it's a combination of a leaf-like shape, let's see if I can get a little bit closer, a leaf-like shape plus some text, what kind of logo would that mean that it is as far as the logo type? So we're combining, I think I probably just totally gave it away. We are merging together some sort of symbol as well as a little bit of type, kind of neither one nor the other. What could that fall into the category of? And I'm actually going to turn off my webcam because I'm suddenly extremely paranoid I'm going to accidentally spill, and that would be a bad thing. Okay, so if we're combining things, what kind of mark is that? Okay, David. Yeah, David says combination mark. Exactly. I'm sorry, Daniel. And Tamisha's agreeing. Yes, for sure. So this is a combination mark. So there's a picture element. There's a type element. Mash them up together, and it turns into a combination. So it's kind of fun. Like I know whenever I teach courses, for about 4 weeks, I become a little bit obsessed with whatever the content is. So with this course, I can already tell, like, I'm going to be going on like logo identification like crazy. But it's cool, and it helps, as dorky as it sounds, it does help your mind just kind of process and see and overall kind of engage with things a bit more. So I would really encourage you guys, like at the grocery store, at the gas station, taking your kids to school, wherever you find yourself, if you're at work, look around and look for logos, be on the lookout for logos, and then just kind of say, like, what kind of logo is it? And is it really, will 98% of the things we'd be surrounded by be combination marks? I think so, but we shall see. You guys will have to report back. All right, so of these 7, they're all well and good, but we are going to primarily focus on the first 2, which are word mark and letter mark. And actually, we're going to primarily focus on the first one, which is word mark, which is word mark. And that's because that's going to kind of be the focus for our week 1 assignment. So to kind of dial into review about that a bit more, a word mark logo is a font-based logo that focuses on a business's name alone. So it's not like Odell Brewing that has a leaf. It's like if it just said Odell Brewing, and it didn't have any leaves involved, that would kind of be the element. So word alone. So kind of here are a couple examples as well as pros and cons. Pros, easy to associate with the brand name because hello, the brand name says itself, which is perfect. It's also fairly easy to create because you don't have to think too much into the symbolism. You don't have to think about how you're going to, merge the image and the word together. It's just the word itself. That's pretty good. Cons of it, it can feel very generic. A lot of times there's kind of this thinking that like, meh, it's just a word. Like somebody had to get paid money to actually produce that. Why couldn't, you just type it out on the computer and call it a day? So it can kind of feel generic. And there's lots of, there can be lots of kind of negative cultural associations with what goes into making word marks. And then also it's highly font dependent. And so you do have to kind of find that perfect font, or you have to make that perfect font, which is something we're going to get into in our assignment this week. So it's easy on one hand, it's quick on one hand, it's also incredibly difficult on one hand, and it's also so streamlined and minimal that you can't really hide behind anything. You have to commit and go, and it's it's pretty. When you find the right one, it works, but it does take a bit of testing and time. Excuse me. Okay, so winning with word marks. Everything matters, as I said. So letter choice, spacing, orientation, scale. So requires a very high level of intentionality. With a solo word, there is no room for hiding. Very, very, very important. And you must do your research. You must engage in design process so that you have a good, well-informed creation overall. All right, so reminder, here's the design process kind of flowing through. We want to first define the problem. Second, collect information. Third, brainstorm and analyze. Fourth, develop. Fifth, get feedback. And then sixth, improve. So we are going to, in the assessment for this week, and the assignment as well, we're kind of going to go from steps 1 to 4. So the assessment is really about kind of collecting information. The assignment is really about brainstorming, analyzing, and developing. And then, just the act of reading the assignment and the assessment briefs is really going to help you define the problem and kind of figure out, what's going on there, what's at the core, why are we being asked to step in, kind of why are we helping, that sort of thing. So steps 1 to 4, pretty cool. We're just going to check them all off this week, which is great. Okay, so speaking of checking off things and jumping in and that sort of thing, I thought we'd do just a quick kind of blitz round of assessment stuff, so we can just check in about that. So the assessment for this week, as I said, oh look, somebody turned theirs in already. Woohoo! As I said, with this week, so I'm trying to do too many things at once. With this week, it would be to your advantage to do the assessment first, and then use what you learn, use what you've seen in the assessment to tackle the assignment for this week. So the assessment really is your chance to do visual research. So what you're going to do is first choose one of the clients in assignment 1. So it's a little messy. You're going to have to go back and forth, but it's okay. So you're going to choose a client, and then you're going to create a mood board. So a mood board basically is just a board in quotes. A lot of times now it's digital, but it's just a compilation of some inspiration pieces. So color schemes, imagery, type choices, visuals, just things that speak to you as a designer. If you find it and think it's cool, put it on a mood board. Design is such a broad kind of interconnected field that I'd be open to anything being inspiration, mostly because I know in my own practice I'm inspired, by things that may or may not be traditional inspiration stuff. So whatever you want, you can put on your mood board. Okay, so to create your mood board, you can do it either in Illustrator, so it's going to be 11 by 17 if you do that, or you can make a personalized Pinterest board and share your link. So creating it in Illustrator, kind of things to think about are just keeping your grid intact. We want our mood boards to be very neat, to look like they've been designed by someone who is in a 300 level class, as opposed to by someone who has no idea what they're doing. So make your mood board neat if you do it in Illustrator. If you do it in Pinterest, we went over kind of a little tutorial about how to create your own account in Pinterest in yesterday's session. So just make sure you view that. And then we created our board, which was steep tea inspiration, and I did some pinning for it. And then also a cool thing is once you have pinned something, it's good if you go back in and add some comments. Did I add a comment to this? I guess maybe I didn't. Good sometimes to add comments as well, which apparently I did not do with this one, but I know I did it with one of them. Did I do it with this guy? Oh, okay, I guess I didn't do this either. Well, it's nice to add comments as well. And I know I did it with one of them. Did I do it here? Comments? Any comments? No, I didn't. Oh, yes, I did. I love this brush-like font. Maybe good for the steep name. There you have it. So it's good to just write yourself little, like a little memo as to why you like it, why it's kind of speaking to you, and that sort of thing. So again, how you pin in Pinterest is you do a search for something you would like. Let's do word mark logos. Something you would like, something you feel like might be, ooh, that's so cool. Something you feel might be applicable to what you're doing. And then you find if you like it. Oh my goodness, look at how amazing these wordmark logos are. Oh, so cool. Oh, I like this one. 3D-ish. So once you find something you like, just click save. And then it will ask you which board you want to put it on. Generally, it will follow, or it will post, whichever one you've used last at the top. And then you just do it, and it saves. And apparently my internet is not happy right now, so we'll just watch it load for a little bit. If it doesn't work, we'll just close it down. But yeah, so super easy. Yes, it did it. Super easy, and then it's just a great way to find inspiration and just to see what's out there. Like part of the wonder of being a designer is that you get to just like look at this stuff, and in some senses people might be like, hey, that's just surfing the web, it's wasting time, whatever. It may be surfing the web, but it is feeding your creativity, because it's just putting all these little visual ideas in your head, and you're not going to copy them directly because that's plagiarism, that's stealing, but you are going to look and just say, hey, I really like what's happening here. Like this 3D thing, so cool. Like I'm not going to make a 3D-H, but I might start working in 3D with my letters and kind of, bending things, or, this is just how things are created with geometric shapes. Like so cool. You never know. You never know what you might find. And you also just never know what can kind of inspire you. Like, how beautiful is that? Yes, so cool. So I would highly recommend creating the assessment using Pinterest. That said, if you're not comfortable, if you're not into it, whatever, I can 100% respect that. But you will just have to kind of show me some things that are kind of inspiring you. Like letters made out of feathers. What? So cool. Explore. Idea. So anyway, all right, so let's get out of here and back into the assessment. So just a couple kind of technical details. If you have, please check this submission instructions. So if you've created your mood board in Illustrator, you are going to save it as a PDF and then submit it as a PDF. If you have created it in Pinterest, you're going to take a screenshot and submit a link, and you should be good. And as far as what you're going to take your screenshot of, so this is, let's get out of here and let's get back to my board. So I'm actually okay if you just take a picture of this thing. So, where it says here steep tea inspiration, ideally it's going to say 10 pins or more, mostly because you are required to have 10 inspiration sources for this. So you could just take a picture of this guy and then just send me your Pinterest link as well. And that's good. So we just need, a little bit of documentation that you have indeed made this. and then also that I can just kind of check in and see what's happening. So that's what we need for that. All right, so anything else I need to say about this? I don't think so. As far as where you pull your inspirations from, yeah, like I said, totally open. Whatever you want is a-okay with me. All right, so, one more thing I guess we'll just check out since we're here. Every assignment and assessment has a rubric attached to it. So if you are at all curious how I will be assessing what you do, you can see it right here in the rubric. So mood board contains at least 10 pieces of inspiration presented in a clear and concise style. 35 points, pretty good. And then naming conventions, and then also a submission deadline. So that's kind of what the points will how the points will be distributed. Okay, so moving right along. Let's go back here. And if you are watching and you have any questions or issues or thoughts or whatever, just let me know and I'll try to kind of clarify, or if you're getting stuck at a certain point. I know that Pinterest is like the easiest thing ever until it's not. So if you need just any kind of help or walkthrough, just let me know and I'd be more than happy to kind of give you some pointers. And then also Course Media has a lot of information. So another good thing to check out. All right, so we are going to do a little review of typography. And the reason that we are going to do a review of typography is that for assignment 1, you are going to be creating you're going to be creating 3 different wordmark logos. So we're going to kind of just do a review of 3 key terms related to creating a wordmark logo. 3 key terms related to typography to keep in mind when creating a wordmark logo. And then we're going to jump into the assignments. We're going to do a demo, and that'll probably take just about the rest of the class. So that's kind of where we're headed for the next hour and a half-ish. All right, so type time. So the 3 words that we are going to look at in depth, the 3 concepts we're going to look at in depth, are kerning, tracking, and leading. So as you are either here or as you are watching the video, kerning, tracking, leading, do any of these look familiar to you? Do all of these look familiar to you? Do they look unfamiliar? What's kind of your level of knowing? And if you're here, you can feel free to type in the chat box, or if you're watching via video, just kind of check in, like, do I know what those are? Do I know what those mean? Kind of thumbs up, thumbs down sort of thing. Okay, it looks like they all look somewhat familiar, but still confused to which meaning goes to each. Yeah, for sure. These are all these are all terms that I feel like we throw out so much. And I know even when I was a student, like, them, they're important, and then it's still that slight disconnect of like, but why should I know these things? And so so it takes a lot of repetition, I think, before you kind of start seeing the patterning and what matters. Okay, so let's jump right in with from the top. And this is perhaps the most important, kind of important term to keep in mind, and that is kerning. So kerning, which again is just a crazy word, like who's going to have that roll off their tongue? Pretty much no one except designers. So kerning refers to the amount of space between 2 letters or other characters, so numbers, punctuation, etc., and the process of adjusting that space to avoid awkward-looking gaps between your letters and to improve legibility. So kerning literally means space between stuff. So when we're manipulating space between like the K and the E and the R, whatever, this would be known as kerning, how we kind of move those things around. So all the Adobe software gives us the tools to kind of manually adjust these as we would like. And we're gonna look at how to do that when we're in the software. But just know right now, kerning is anything that happens between any two characters. So two letters, what happens in between them is referred to as the kerning. So kerning is very important because if you ignore your kerning, you may have other people seeing words or phrases that are totally not what you meant to design. So if you are curious what this looks like, one caveat, it's generally not PG, but if you do a Google search on logos with bad kerning, there's so many terrible words that pop out that nobody seems to have seen who is designing, because we all get very close to our designs. So when two letters get very close to each other, instead of reading as two letters, they often turn into a new letter entirely, and then it changes the way the word looks, changes the meaning, and then people snicker and blush, and all sorts of terrible things happen. So basically, kerning, you need to think about the spacing between your letters, and you really need to try to look at your pieces with a critical eye, because you want to make sure that your word is totally readable, so there's not too little or not too much space in between letters. And even more, you don't have any weird things showing up that you didn't think about. So like, kerning tends to be very important with certain pairs of letters. So like F and L tend to need to have a little bit more space, because sometimes they resolve into something else. Trying to think what's another kerning pair. F and L, that's a big one. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But like I said, if you want to see examples of lots of cringe-worthy kerning issues, just Google logos with bad kerning or just bad kerning, and it all is out there in all of its cringe-worthy glory. So very important as you're designing logos, like I said, to just think about the spacing in between each of your characters. So you want it to be not too little and not too much. You want it to be just kind of right, so the word feels tight and close together, so it looks like a word. It doesn't look like individual letters, but it's not too close that letters are turning into something. So kerning, space between any two things. So keep that two things is kind of the key thing. Okay, so moving from that into our second term is going to be the word tracking. So tracking is very similar to kerning in that it is the space between individual characters, but tracking is the space between groups of letters rather than individuals. So tracking is the space in the entire word. So tracking affects the overall character density of the copy. So if something is tracked open, it means there's lots of space between the letters. If something is tracked tight, it means that there's not very much space at all between the letters. But tracking is the entire word. So kerning is just two things. Tracking is everything. So here are a couple examples. So more energetic. Things tend to look more like kind of frenzied and energetic, kind of tightened, that sort of thing. When they are tightly tracked, so this is an example, more energetic is tightly tracked. You can see the letters are all very close to each other. You can see even that the E, the T, and the I of energetic are so tightly tracked that they don't look like E, T, and I. It looks like some sort of character combination that's not English. So it's kind of compromising the readability. On the other hand, if you do open tracking, which means you have a lot of space between your characters, it tends to feel a bit more zen. So the letters just have kind of like a breathing space between them. They have kind of almost a visual pause. And so that tends to feel a little bit more kind of relaxed. So steep T, probably you wouldn't want it to be like super tight in its tracking. Might be better, kind of more open, a little bit more zen. Let's see, it looks like a weird type of E with the E, T, and the I. Exactly. So when you track tight, just some weird stuff happens with your letters. But when you track very loose, so like the more zen, there is a point where you make your tracking so big that your brain has a hard time kind of recognizing it as a word, because there's just so much space in between the letters. So that brings us to kind of an interesting thing. We interpret space between letters in a physical manner. So it's very odd. But even though they're just quote unquote letters, as humans, we still see them as physical things, which are a bit like us. So we have this really crazy and I think kind of amazing capability to look at anything and kind of give it human attributes. And that especially happens with type. So when we see letters that are really kind of cramped together, it kind of physically makes you feel a little bit more kind of like cramped and close. When you see letters that are very open, it kind of physically makes you feel slightly more open. So it's just kind of a cool thing to keep in mind. Like, your audience may or may not be able to verbalize it, but how you design a visual has some sort of physical impact on the person that's taking it in. So it's kind of a cool thing. Like we really affect people in some ways that are beyond just like what their eyeballs are seeing. And so as designers, we need to be very aware of that. And we need to be very responsible with what we're creating. So kind of a cool thing to kind of balance and see. So kerning is space between individual characters. So that's the definition. Tracking is space between entire words. And then leading is the space between lines of text. So leading is an essential design aspect that determines how text is spaced vertically in lines. So leading and lines, that kind of goes together. Like it's actually kind of how I remember it, because they both start with L's. So leading and lines. In logo design, leading is only relevant for logos with multiple words in them and words particularly that are stacked. So this, if you're doing steep T, this might not be an issue. If you're doing I can't remember what the other one was. The bakery for the dog, wag time or something. This might not be an issue. If you are doing Brooks and Emma jewelry, this could be an issue. So, just something to kind of keep in mind. So leading really is this space. So the space between individual lines. So oftentimes in logo design, if you have multiple lines to your logo, like if you have like the main name of the company or whatever, and then like a little tagline underneath, you want to pay attention to what's happening here. I do have an arrow. What's happening here, because that kind of space, if it's too big, you're gonna not have a good connection amongst the elements. If it's too small, you're generally probably going to lose this guy because it's too small. So leading is something to definitely keep in mind. Let's see, I remember using leading on projects for previous classes. Yeah, and leading is primarily talked about in the context of paragraphs of text. So that's where it gets really important, because it's very much of a readability issue. But as soon as you have a logo that has 2 lines, leading becomes kind of an issue, because you want to make sure that you have kind of adequate spacing. So let's clear that. So we have kerning, tracking, leading. So kerning, again, space between any two characters. Tracking, space between entire words. And then letting is space between lines. And I would encourage you guys to just kind of like keep these ideas in your head. I have a couple actually really cool resources about learning to engage with these, including this cool online computer game that lets you practice your kerning skills. And it's really fun. So I'm going to post that to announcements probably later today, tomorrow. So definitely be on the lookout for it. So kerning, tracking, letting, good things to keep in mind. Okay. So let's change. Oh, one more thing I did want to say. Kerning, tracking, and letting are another thing that sets people who have been trained in design apart from people that are just putting together designs as amateurs. So people that are putting together designs as amateurs don't know these, they generally don't know these words, and even more, they don't know to look for these things. So especially space in between characters. So when you're just kind of like looking at design around your town or whatever, a very easy way to tell like the DIYers from like the people that actually have some background in things in this is that the kerning is off. So you won't have like even spaces in between your letters, or you'll just have some really like bizarro combinations. So that's kind of a cool thing to kind of keep in mind too. That said, since we all are not DIYers, we all are professionals, we have to make sure that we do the right thing because we don't want to get, I don't want to create like an us-them dichotomy, but people are going to hire us. And so we need to make sure that we are giving them the goods, so to speak, and kind of making sure that we are being very intentional about these things as well. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, so speaking of things being intentional and being professionals, we're going to just take a quick look at the project flow for this course, and then jump in, like I said, to kind of a demo for the assignment. So if you have read such things as, not the session 2 folder, such things as the assignment for this week, you will first off say, whoa, that's a lot of text. But the second thing you will say is, whew, we are going to have a cumulative project for this course. And again, I mentioned this a little bit in yesterday's session, but we're going to go a little bit kind of step by step through it now as well. So basically, this course has a cumulative project format. So each week we will work on a different element of the project, and upon completion of the course, you will have a high-quality final project that demonstrates your ability to create and implement an advanced logo design. So over the next 4 weeks, you will be working with a client who is in the process of repositioning their company to utilize a subscription box platform. To this end, you will be creating a custom wordmark logo, a set of symbols, a set of custom patterns, and finally a fully mocked up subscription box and 2 accompanying items within that box that will contain all of the above elements. So you're going to you're going to chip away at this project week by week, and then when we're at the very end, you'll have something that should be, in theory, very cool overall. So when I say subscription box, does that kind of ring any bells for anyone? Do you guys know what that is? Again, if you're watching via video or if you're here in person, you can type something kind of yes, no, yay, or nay. Are you a subscription boxer? Okay, looks like we have some no's. And it's funny because it seems like people are either like, oh yeah, I'm so into them and I get some every month and, oh, it's the best thing ever. Or it's like, I've never even heard of this subscription box. Like, what is it? So So kind of in a nutshell, the Dean of Graphic Arts actually describes subscription boxes as like the jelly of the month club or something. So, which is a pretty retro comparison. But basically, you can see here a subscription box is a box that's delivered monthly or semi-annually, designed to offer an interesting curated assortment of specialty items. So subscription boxes are a great way to market products to an audience who has already opted in or expressed interest in the assortment of products contained within. Companies participate in these subscription services with their products to promote not only their products, but their brand. Subscription boxes can be tailored to any interest group or niche market, from food to movies to beauty items to pet products to clothing. The potential is endless. So basically the idea with subscription boxes, and you can even do a Google search on them, they're pretty cool actually. I've yet to subscribe, but I have a friend that subscribes, and I'm very curious when she gets hers, which is going to be in the near future. But yeah, so basically you sign up and you pay a company kind of a certain amount of money, depending on kind of what you're getting and how frequently. And then you just get mailed these boxes, and they could be filled with an assortment of whatever kind of the interest is that you're working with. And I actually have, let's see if I have it right here. Yes, I do. I found this really good graphic on Pinterest about how you can actually start a subscription box. So the idea is that, and don't worry, this is going to sound way more complicated than what we're doing for this course. But basically you start with a great idea. The more niche, the better. Then you think about who is your potential customer, what would they want? You put together a prototype box, again, like what would you want to receive? Then you build, email, collect stuff, select it, use the revenue, ship the box, get word of mouth, start doing it. But yeah, so I mean, it's kind of this cool thing, like people pay you money, you choose things they might like, and then you give it, then you send it to them, type deal. So what we're doing here is we're kind of working in the imagined subscription box world. So what we're thinking is that we have one of these companies has hired us. So again, this folder, you will need it. So one of these companies has hired you, and then they want you to help them with their subscription box creation. So the idea is that this week the company needs a logo, and then as the mod unfolds, the company's going to need a couple other things that you will also provide to them. So here's kind of the generalized flow of what we're doing. So for week 1, we are going to make a logo. For week 2, we are going to refine the logo that we made. So we're going to go from 3 logos in week 1 to 1 logo in week 2 with, I believe, color and black and white. Then in week 3, we're going to make a set of symbols to kind of go with the logo. It's going to be kind of patterny stuff that the idea is we could also put on packaging. So the symbols are going to be directly tied to the logo, perhaps contain elements of the logo, depending on what you're going for. And then in week 4, we're going to animate the logo. So the idea that when somebody gets an email about their subscription box, they're also going to get kind of an animated GIF in there. So we're going to create that. And then we're also going to mock up items and see what that might be. So if you're wondering, what are these items I speak of? Here is an example. So in the company overviews, there will be products for mock-up. So you can see in this one, it's dog food can and treat pouch. So you guys will actually be using Illustrator or Photoshop to mock up these things and make them look kind of like something that might come in a subscription box. So 2 things for this one. There's kind of 2 things for all of them. So tea box, travel mug, and this one is earring card and ring box. So you're going to mock up, whatever that is. So it should be good. And it should also, just be something cool that you can add to your portfolio as far as, what your capability is, because it's a little bit of logo, It's a little bit of package design. It's a little bit of layout. So it should be a lot of fun as part of that whole thing. So that's kind of the overall flow for the mod. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. This is kind of like assignments are going to take this flow. So as far as assessments, there's going to be some quizzes. There's going to be some papers that you have to write. And hey, there's Ruby. There's going to be some conversations with Yorkies. But so things will kind of connect together. So it might seem like it's a lot, but it's all built in a way that every week will kind of sequentially step to the next part. So just kind of keep that in mind too. All right, so speaking of sequentially moving and stepping, let's go to the assignment so that we can check that out and start up some demos. So I'm curious, for the two of you that are in class, have you chosen your client yet? Do you have any ideas? If you're watching the video, I'm curious as well, but you probably don't have the ability to answer me quite as quickly. But yeah, what's the? Let's see. Nope, not yet. Mm-hmm. So we got to go up to where the word mark is. Actually, let's go down here. Yeah, there's still time, and kind of. I'd say figure out what you're interested in, and just what word kind of pulls at you. And then also think about, what you might need in what was your portfolio like? But even more, I think what you would enjoy, what you would subscribe to if you were, so you're kind of leaning toward Wagtail. Sweet. If you were a subscription boxer, which one would you be most interested in? Okay, so for this assignment, you're going to begin work on your custom logo creation. By creating the following elements, which are 3 custom word mark directions. So you're going to use the information in this week's session, which is what I'm going to provide you with now, as well as information in the week 1 course media page to create 3 possible directions for your custom logo. So you will need to either sketch the logo by hand and then bring them into Illustrator and convert them to vector outlines, or significantly alter an existing font by creating by the Create Outlines functionality of Illustrator. And then each logo goes on its own artboard, so your native Illustrator file has 3 artboards total. So a couple things that this is implying. First thing is that you are not just going to type the name of your you're not going to just type the name of your client in a font and call it a day. And the other thing is that you're just going to be working in black and white. So don't add color yet, but just kind of keep that in mind. And you will need to kind of significantly alter. So if you want to, do it by hand, kind of draw something out, that's cool, that's great. And then go into Illustrator and kind of work from there. Or if you want to just start with a font and then change it, that's good as well. You can kind of operate from that space as well. So I'm going to do a demo on kind of both directions, kind of both thinking, and you're going to have to bear with me a little bit because again we're going to use the webcam and draw and things, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it should be good, but we'll see. But we're not going to do that yet. We're going to start with the second option, which is starting with a base font, going into Illustrator, and then significantly altering it. So I'm going to first open up my Illustrator, which I don't believe is open, and go from there. So when you're thinking about, if you are thinking about doing this idea of starting with a pre-made font and then altering it in Illustrator, I would say think significantly about which type of font you want to use as your base. And actually, how I would go about thinking about that is not just sitting and thinking in your head, but actually doing a little bit of font exploration in a focused way. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to just open a new document in Illustrator. And basically what I'm going to do is just explore kind of what a lot of different fonts look like. And then I'm going to move into the process of actually customizing them. And so I'm just going to start with an 11 by 17 artboard. And this is just going to let me see a whole bunch of fonts and see what I like. So I'm doing Steep T. And so easiest way, I think, to just kind of visualize, what's a whole bunch of potential, is just to take your type tool, click once, and then type in your company name. In this case, it's going to be Steep, and then make it fairly large. And then I'm just going to make a whole bunch of steeps, and then I'm going to go through and just change the fonts on all of them just to see the different feel of what might come out. So easiest way to do that, you could do Command C, Command V for copy and paste, or a cool shortcut is just with your word selected, hold down your Option key, click on the word, and then drag, and it'll just make a copy for you. So I'm going to just do that. Select both of those, Option, click, and then Option, click, and then grab that whole stack, Option, click, and then bring it over. Maybe get one more. Actually, no, that's too many. Let's do this. So again, I'm just going to play with my fonts a little bit to see what would feel kind of good for this company and what might be a good idea. So I'm going to just select the first one, and then I'm going to open up my type. Oops. There it is, my character menu. Select my first one, and then close that down. And then Illustrator is so nice because you can see, kind of gives you the live preview. So let me just grab my Steep. I believe it's going to be the second one, maybe. So I'm just going to grab my keywords. Okay, exotic, mysterious, mellow, tranquil, and calm. So kind of keep that in mind as I'm just doing like a first pass of fontage. So mysterious, what might that look like? It's probably not going to look like that. Kind of calm, tranquil. What does that feel like? What does that, when I say those words, what's kind of resonating in me? So, just look at your font samples. Somehow for me, I'm not thinking anything with two in the side. Actually, it could look a lot like sleep, so that's kind of something to be aware of. I don't think I really want anything with too sharp of a serif, because that kind of feels too hard and edgy. So as I'm just kind of looking through this, I'm just looking and thinking how does that feel? What feels calm? This feels like a race car, so I don't want that. That feels like a carnival. That's kind of cool. So don't edit yourself a lot. Just kind of go with gut reaction, like what feels kind of cool. That feels actually very cool. So kind of go through. And this is all research. So if you're like, I'm totally not into that, you don't have to do this, but I think it's quite helpful to see, just to see the word in a lot of different ways. And it's especially helpful too, because I think that with word marks, we need to get past the idea that it says the word. We need to have it visually, we need to have it kind of visually hold, kind of visually represent the word. So if you can see the word not as a word, but as a kind of a a visual kind of a sculptural element or something like that, it'll just help you kind of get more into the idea of making the logo. Ooh, that's kind of cool. No longer English, but that's okay. So it's, yeah, so it's good to look in these different pieces. That kind of looks like sleep even more, but I like that. So yeah, so just kind of go through, see what's here, see what you like. I guess I don't have as many fonts as I was thinking I did. That was one that I just did. Etherbat. Kind of a cool thing that you might try as well is this little button that says add fonts from Typekit. And I don't know if you guys have checked this out before, but with your Adobe subscription that you get through our wonderful services at Independence University, you actually also get access to a variety of fonts from Typekit, which is an Adobe organization. And they're a bit like free fonts because you don't have to pay for them, but they're of a higher quality often than a lot of free fonts out there. So you can click on that. So I access this through my character menu, and you'll see, like, it'll say how many fonts you can get in your plan, or to buy, which you don't have to go for. But then you can just type in a word, and then it will show, oh, that's actually really cool. It'll show the word in a whole bunch of different ways. Oh, look at how cool that is as well. Oh, I love that. We might go for this one. Okay, so you can click on any of these, and this is Typekit. So again, just something kind of fun to explore, because I don't think, well, yeah, I know I certainly don't ever talk about this, so I don't know if if other instructors do or not, but it's kind of one of those cool things that I feel like you should definitely know about if you have Adobe. Okay, so what you do if you find something you like through Typekit, ooh, that one's even like aged out. I love it. So if you find something you like, you can just go to sync, or in this case, I could do sync all, and it's going to sync Milka 7 fonts. Please wait while the cloud does its thing. The fonts will be with you in no time. So it's syncing, and it will show up. Yay! Okay, so your plan allows for up to 100 fonts at a time. Pretty cool. I just hit 49. Okay, so then you can close. And what that's going to do is they're going to then show up in my Adobe. So that one, you could sync everything. There are some that are, let's do Garamond. Oops. So there are a couple that you will hit that say, okay, so you can sync those. There are some that are like you can only sync one, and then you have to buy. And if you hit that, I mean, just go on to another one, or if you want to purchase it, that's fine as well. But yeah, so it's kind of a cool thing, and there's tons and tons of fonts here, and you can definitely search by filters. So if you want a certain thing, or if you want a recommendation for headings, different properties, figure styles. We're not working with figures, so I don't think it's going to matter. But yeah, just something really cool to explore. And you never know what you're going to find here. And like I said, they're free anyways with your subscription, so go for it. Yeah, just play around a little bit. Okay, so that's Typekit. So another spot where you might get fonts. And then I'm going to find Milka in here, and there it is. So cool. Okay, so because we're going to customize it, I'm not going to, that's so cool. I'm going to do just regular. But yeah, so kind of go through, orient yourself to fonts. This is again just a way to get ideas kind of in your head, to just start thinking, get your creative juices flowing, so to speak. And then when you find something that you really like, well, ideally if you find 3 things that you really like, you can kind of go through from there and start customizing. So I really like this guy. So I'm just gonna start customizing this word up. And I'm gonna just check to see if we have a size requirement for these. I don't think we do, but there's my Safari. I don't think we do, but we'll just double check. Create 3 possible directions. Okay, yeah, size is up to you. Whatever you want it to be. I am going to, since I like designing in a square, I'm going to make my document 8 by 8, and I'm going to have 3 artboards, since we're going to have 3 different logo options. And I'm going to do create, and you'll see here's my potential. So as always, what we do first is save. So file, save as, and I do know we have a save. Okay, so file name, copy that, bring it back here, Lisa Hammersheim, and we're going to save our .ai first, and then we'll go back and save it as a PDF afterward. So I'm going to bring over my steep here, and now we're going to begin the process of customization. Ooh. And this is unfortunate because I love it so much. I don't want to change anything, but for this assignment, we have to change things. So we can't just fall in love with an individual font. So what I'm going to do is convert. So the whole process, which this may or may not be review, but the whole process when you start with a font in Illustrator and then kind of take a custom font and customize it, or take a pre-made font and customize it. The process is that you first type the font, or you type the word, then you take the font and you convert it to outlines, and then you take those outlines and you kind of manipulate the letters as kind of individual shapes. So I typed my word first, and then I'm going to select it and go to type, create outlines. And it's very important that you make sure it's spelled correctly because once you convert it to outlines, you can't change the spelling. And this is a mistake I have made a few times. So we convert it to outlines, and then we're going to have to ungroup it. So we're going to go to Object, Ungroup, and then we can manipulate each of these individually. So the word essentially goes from being made up of letters to being made up now of like shapes and objects. So we can manipulate these just like we would any sort of shape and see kind of what comes out of it. So this is going to be an interesting challenge because like I said, we have to make sure it says steep, it doesn't say sleep. And I really want to make this T kind of big, but I don't think that's going to be a good idea. So once you have your your letter converted into shapes, then you can kind of play and manipulate and see what might come of it. So things possibly you could do, use your direct selection tool, find an anchor point and kind of alter it, turn it into a little bit more shape-like. That actually might be good to turn it to make it look more like a T than like a So you're just going to kind of, oops. And if something like this shows up as a group, essentially, just come to Object, try expand, see if that will get it. It didn't get it through, but select it with your direct selection. That always maybe works. Okay, so we're going to kind of get that a little bit more T-like. So creating it not too difficult. You just want to play with it, and you want to alter alter your font in some way, whether it's changing up the size of the letters, so kind of how they're oriented. It might be kind of cool actually if we have this one like, ooh, that's kind of cool. It's like a little like tea leaf type deal. And I don't need it to be, if you're kind of wondering like, oh, I don't know if I can read it quite at the moment. If it's a little bit more on the decorative side, I'm actually okay with that. So you can kind of play with the shapes, of the letters. Ooh, that's so cool. I love it. Okay, so let's kind of step back. Steep. Does it look like anything? I don't know, kind of fun. So we're gonna bring this into our first artboard. Move this over, so that's a possibility. And again, remember what I did is I just found an interesting font on Typekit, and then I converted it to outlines, and then I just went through and I started kind of manipulating the points and sections, so it becomes just a little bit more abstracted and kind of custom. Let's see, it looks like a shape now. I know, I think I'm jumping from wordmark into slightly more abstracted, which is always kind of how I tend to flow when I'm working on my own without clients. And this is, whenever I'm working with clients, they're always like, interesting, but no. So I think when I'm doing my own practice, it it all comes out. But yeah, so I mean, all that to say, if you want to make this a little bit more of a decorative thing, if you two are like me that are constantly looking for abstraction, I'm cool with it. That's fine. We'll kind of see what happens. Okay, so there's my first steep. For my second steep, I will stay slightly more traditional, and let's go with let's actually go with this one and see what we can do. So again, I'm just going to copy and then paste. And then how we're going to do this is object and, type and create outlines. And then object and ungroup. See what's going to happen here with this guy. And this is a little bit of an interesting one because it has a, yeah, I was thinking that might work. that might happen. It has a this inline in it, which means it's got these little shapes that are essentially just like white boxes inside of it. So kind of interesting what we can do with that. I like that. So how can we just play with it? And I won't. Ooh, look at that. It's getting like 3D. So when you play with these fonts and when you convert them to outlines and you start kind of pulling on them a bit, you never quite know what you're going to find. And I like that. Okay, so let's see if we can do something similar in this. So it almost becomes like a thing inside of a thing. So it's like mysterious. I could see that coming out. See if we move this a little bit over. Oops, what might happen? How you can play it. So I'm hoping you guys are getting like, this is an incredibly playful process. And you never know what's going to come out as your logo. I have this idea that if we did a reflected, so we have an E going like the opposite way, we could almost make it look like it was, oops, did I not do that? Oh no, why is my Illustrator suddenly, oh, I think my Illustrator might be closing, and I don't think I saved. Terrible. Oh no, there's a reflection. Never mind. Okay. So like, yeah, the E, kind of the negative space, how could we play with that? And let's just save this quickly. So, yeah. Ooh, what's gonna happen? So this is where, get a snack, put some good music on. and then just see what you can come up with. See what kind of cool creative stuff may or may not emerge. Ooh, I like that. Okay, let's get the T over there. So we started with our okay, I'd like this even more if it's slightly larger. Our root font was Acerbat, which coincidentally was also a Typekit font. And now what we're doing with it is basically just, I'm kind of breaking it apart, abstracting it, turning it into something that feels very custom. Probably nobody would look at this and say, oh, it looks like she used Acerbat. No, they would look at it and be like, what's going on with those letters? It feels so mysterious. It also feels very sharp, which I wasn't anticipating, but we can further work through that. And it's great. I gave you a great talk about the importance of things like leading and kerning and readability, and then I'm kind of just breaking it all, but it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to break the rules just a bit for the process of invention and play, and you never quite know what's going to happen. Okay, so steep. Oh, I love it. So this is another option for potential for a logo. Pretty wild, a little fragmented, and kind of wonderful all at the same time. So we're going to keep that one and save it, and move it a little bit toward the middle of the artboard. Oops. So kind of the important thing here, use your direct selection tool, and yeah, just kind of have fun with it and see what might come out. The really cool thing is that this is the first week, so we're going to be doing this for 2 weeks. So whatever you can come up with here, we can always kind of step back and refine as needed, and it would be kind of it's kind of good from there. So just practice. Boy, this looks like an 80s punk band or something. Steep. Is it appropriate for the client? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, it looks like I feel like I might have lost an E in there somehow. I don't know. Okay, so what we're going to do for our final one is I'm just going to do a quick demo on kind of if you want to do this by hand. One potential way you could do it and kind of get things connected. So I'm actually going to take just 2 minutes because I need to just run and get a piece of paper and a pen. So if anybody needs a quick break, we will be back momentarily. Okay, and we are back. So we talked about using the base font using a base font in Illustrator, and then using the Create Outlines option to kind of fragment, customize, take it from something that was fairly recognizable and routine to something that's a bit more kind of custom and special. So the other way you might do this, and this is if you're kind of more of a handish type person, is to start with just paper and a pen or a pencil or whatever you want to, and kind of just doodle, write, practice, draw letters, and see what you might come up with. So if you're into this, like if you're into hand lettering, like go for it. This is, if you're into hand lettering, that is a skill to cultivate. That is something that will guarantee set you apart. There's a ton of hand lettered fonts out there right now, and it's like a super hot thing. But because they're fonts, they always look like fonts. So kind of a better thing is, you know, if you can do it by yourself or do it yourself, and then kind of bring that to your client, that's a great, yeah, that's just a really great asset. And that's a really good thing that will set you apart as a designer. So anything you can do handedness, especially now in graphic design, since everything is on the computer, is a really good thing to kind of cultivate. So here's a disclaimer. I'm not really that great at hand stuff. So I'm just going to give you kind of like a, here's what you could do type deal. But don't don't expect much, because it's not my forte and it always takes me a while. So I'm just going to do something really quick so we're not just watching me agonize. So paper, pen, you know, super easy. Just write something out, whatever you're kind of feeling. Might be kind of cool. Steep. Okay. And I actually, I like doing this with a slightly thicker marker, most because it's a little bit easier to digitize. When if you have really thin lines, it gets a little, sometimes it's a little dicey. But okay, so I just wrote out steep. So you can see here's my steep. And then as far as how you actually get this into your computer, so you somehow need to take this into Illustrator. So this needs to go in there. And so there's, in the assignment, there's kind of several different options of ways you might do it, including like taking it somewhere and having someone scan it for you. I think the easiest thing, and actually what I'm going to do, is just to take a picture using your computer. So if you have Photo Booth, which I think everybody has, you can actually just hold this up and take a picture, and that's all you need. I'm actually even just going to use Zoom because I think that will work. Oops, it would work if it was just me, not the computer. Where did I go? I don't want you to do that. Hide non-video participants. Maybe that's what I want. Oh man, it was so good. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. Take a picture. Oh, I should stop my video too. Okay. Stop sharing for just a second. Take a picture with my Photo Booth, and then bring this back inside. And okay, so here's my Photo Booth picture. Okay, so super easy. And what you don't see right now is I'm just dragging it into Illustrator, my photo, and in the very near future, we will share things again. And okay, so share screen. Okay, so here is what I need, my steep logo. And basically what we're going to do now is just digitize it. So you could do that in a variety of ways as well. So you could crop the photo in Photoshop and then just do an image trace on your words itself. That's actually it's a pretty easy thing. I guess we can show that. and do the full step of the process. So I'm gonna open this in Photoshop and see what happens. I guess what's going to happen is opening. But yeah, so this is another option. And if you're watching and you're like, this seems really complicated, it actually looks complicated because I did it in an inelegant manner. But it's a pretty cool way to do it as well. And you know, once you get the drawing in and you know get it into your computer, it's not difficult. It just takes a couple steps. So don't be put off by my own lack of expertise in what I just did. Know that it's a pretty easy option as well. So Photoshop should be opening momentarily. And okay, so we're gonna crop it down. So crop tool. So I just need the word and enter. And you can even take it to grayscale and discard is fine. And then just put a levels filter. So I just want it to be as bright, as kind of black and white as possible. Okay, looks great. And then we're just going to save it as a Photoshop file. Actually, we'll save it as a JPEG. So save and okay. And then we're just going to go back to Illustrator, close that down, oops, and go to File, Place, and Steep, and Place. And here it is. And then we can go to Image Trace, and let's see, I like to try it. Well, I always try a couple just to see what's going to happen. If we did do black and white logo, I wonder what would happen. Would it be a black and white logo? Let's see. Oh, look at that. Pretty cool. Okay, and then expand. And then go through and just get rid of the background. So I just selected that white space with my white direct selection arrow. And then you can see I now have something that looks a little handmade and super cool, actually. Not too shabby. Oftentimes when I do something hand lettered and then bring it into the computer, like digitize it, I do like to get rid of a couple of the extra anchor points because sometimes you get a lot of anchor points, and that kind of gives it like that rough look, not quite so smooth. So you can see down here, kind of it's got like these little jumps in it. So to get rid of those, just use your pen tool and minus, so delete anchor point, and you can kind of just smooth it out a little bit. I guess you shouldn't smooth it too much because it does give it kind of its markery look to have that jaggedness, but just something to kind of play with. Okay, and then we're going to do, again, object ungroup. I guess I don't really need to do too much customization to this one because, you know, it's all custom. It's all my hand, but it's still kind of, I want to play with it just a little, but as I see it's 3:34, maybe I'll resist that urge too much. Yeah. Oh, and then that's got moved around a little bit. Steep. Yeah, so you can just play and see what might come. I feel like there's something cool that could be done with these two E's, and I'm not really sure what that is, but just as far as like kind of making it slightly more like a shape than um, and so this one, as you can see, I'm not doing much, but oh, again, maybe it could kind of look like a little cup. The S was just that P. There's something here, but what it is, I don't know. We'll see what you guys come up with. Just with the way these shapes are, the way these shapes are composing. I like it. Okay. Maybe we'll come in this one and just write, oops, T's. And for any of the clients, if you want to, it kind of looks like it's going to say Texas. If you want to add like, I think one of them, you could be like jewelry suppliers or something, or pet food, or if you want to just add like a little qualifier, like I added tea here, you can feel free to do that. Tea, maybe we'll do tea co. And maybe we'll make that League Gothic. Ooh, that was kind of cool. Okay, so we're gonna do one more thing, because I'm just gonna naturally do it and then I'll explain what I did. One more thing, which I promise goes back to what I was saying before I started making all of these slightly wild word mark image image combos, is just taking a quick look at the typography adjustment tools in Illustrator. So I'm going to create one more artboard over here so we can just look at typography in this section. So basically how you adjust the different things that we talked about is through this character menu. You can adjust all three of the things we talked about. So this guy is the leading. So this is space between lines. This is the kerning, so space between characters. And this is the tracking, which is space between words. So we're going to do a little example. So let's say I have the word Steep Tea Company. And I'm going to make it really big, so 50. Okay, so let's say we want it to look like this. Let's make it even bigger. 72. So at the moment, right now, if I had Steep Tea Company, this wouldn't be very good. It wouldn't be very readable, not because I went crazy and decorative like I did with the others, but because Steep Tea and Company are just too close to one another. So what I'd want to do in this case is increase the leading. So I'm going to come over here, so select everything, come over here to my leading setting, and then open it up. So ideally, in a logo, you want them to be fairly close so that they feel connected, but not so close so that, you could go like this, but you have to have a good reason because it feels a little bit too close. So usually just a little bit of breathing room is better. So that was leading. So remember, space between the lines. Next thing is kerning, and this is actually a really good word to practice our kerning on, because if you kind of squint at this bottom word that says company, it kind of looks a little like comp and Annie, or any, A-N-Y. So C-O-M-P and then A-N-Y. And the reason that it does that is because there's just kind of an unnaturally large amount of space between the P and the A. And so kind of the more you look at it, the more it kind of jumps that it's like two different words, almost kind of too much spacing. So what you're going to want to do in this case, like if you have anything that looks like this, or even just for practice, is put your cursor in between the two kind of offending characters. So whatever feels either too tight or too open. and then come in here and use your kerning settings, which is this V and A, and just, either dial it up or down. So I'm going to dial it down, and I want to draw the P and the A just a bit more together. Kind of a good, we want it to basically match what's going on amongst the other letters. So it's a -41. Oh, that looks pretty good. So let's see what it looked like beforehand, so we can kind of compare. Okay, so this is how it came naturally. And this is, so the lower is how it naturally came. The upper is kind of what happened after we tracked it, or I'm sorry, after we adjusted the kerning. So you can see it's a little tighter, it's a little bit more exact, and it just feels a little kind of more tailored. So this is a good example of how kerning actually makes a difference between two letters. Like, it's company isn't a terrible one, but it just helps to kind of make it a little bit more snug. So one other thing you might want to do too with logos, this is kind of a hot thing, and I actually do this even in my session slides, is to work with our final setting, which is going to be tracking. And remember, tracking refers to the amount of space in the whole word. So kerning is the space in between two characters. Tracking is the space kind of in the whole word. So I'm going to just open up all of the tracking so that the steep T and company are the same line width. So this is kind of this is something I feel like I'm going to do it even more extreme so we can see it a bit more. This is kind of something that was very hot a little bit ago. I feel like it still is kind of hot, but it's kind of waning a bit in the design world. And if you hear that annoying clicking, it's just me making my tracking a little bit bigger. But so when you have one word that you just super open track, because you want to have it be the same length as whatever's above it. And then let's even make this a little bit smaller. Let's try 40. So it feels like it's kind of connected. So that is, yeah, that's kind of a cool look too. And that uses both the leading, that does use both the leading and the tracking. And even before we did that, we actually fixed the kerning between the P and the A. So you generally want to fix your kerning issues and then do your tracking, as opposed to the other way around, just because it's a little bit easier to track with a correctly kerned piece. So all that said, I would actually take, if you want to do something like this for your logo, so if you're kind of adjusting more the interplay of letters and elements, as opposed to doing something that's quite as extreme here, this is totally cool. I would take this as well for the logo, for as far as what's an exploration, because there's a good amount of customization here, even though it's you're not changing the integrity of the letters themselves like I did up here, but you are kind of playing with the typography. So I'd be open for this too. So if that adds to the adds to the fun, potentially adds to the complexity of what you could do, another thing to think about. So just what I want to avoid anyone doing is just doing this. Let's put this all to 0 and auto and minion. I know nobody would do this because you guys are all not into this, but if somebody just does like that and calls that a day, just minion whatever, nah, not so much. Customize it more, make it your own, but you can go whatever you want to do on your crazy factor is okay with me as well. Okay, so we're going to save this up And you guys just have to show 3 explorations. If you want to do 4, that's fine as well. Kind of cool. Not a big fan of Minion. Yes, I deeply, deeply, deeply dislike Minion, and never fails. Somebody turns in something with all Minion, and it's like, what? We live in this world where we have an abundance of fonts, and there's so much out there, and especially with Typekit, there's so much good stuff out there, so you don't need to use that. Minion has its place, but it's a very tiny place, so we can do better. Okay, so we're going to save this. So file, save as, and just make sure format is as PDF, and then click save. And save is fine, Illustrator defaults. And once you have your PDF, yeah, you should be good to go, good to submit. So if you guys have any questions as you're working, or any questions about what you should be making, what you should be doing, anything like that, you can feel free to reach out to me via email. Or if you just have anything where you're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing something like this. Would this be a good option? What do you think? Yeah, I'd love to see those emails, see those pieces in progress as well, and give you feedback. Or, I just love looking at stuff, so that's probably what I would do the most. But yeah, otherwise, sounds good. Well, I guess we'll wrap things up just a little bit early, give you guys some extra time to do a daily checkpoint, get into discussion, or just go to Typekit, do some quote-unquote shopping, or do some play, see what comes out. And sorry, this is bothering me just a bit. Even better. All right, well, I guess I will let you guys go. So thanks for the great first week of class. Looking forward to seeing what comes in for this first part of the assignment. Yeah, and have a great rest of the week. And if you are in a potentially hurricane impacted area, please stay safe. And if you have the ability to just kind of let me know how you're doing, that would be great as well, so I can kind of know how things are going. But otherwise, take care, everyone, and see you next week.